F1 news script, simple English version. Nick de Vries has had one of the worst starts ever in his F1 career, and to make things worse, he got a warning from his boss Helmut Marko. This could be one of the shortest F1 careers that any driver has ever had. But there are always two sides to every story. De Vries' driving has definitely made people worried and left us wondering where is the guy we saw at Monza last year. But it looks like there's a certain honey badger Daniel Ricciardo waiting in the bushes to take his seat at AlphaTauri since he was spotted at their factory. What turned out to be a really big coincidence. Well, with the warning given to de Vries, will we see a huge shakeup and another crazy driver change season anytime soon? Monza 2022 was the race that changed Nick de Vries' life after just one race where he showed off his skills. As all things are right now, this is what we're dealing with. But we shouldn't make decisions after just 5 races with a team that's really struggling to get good results, let alone fight for points all the time. But one thing is for sure, going into 2023, Yuki Tsunoda was the driver that everyone expected to struggle to keep doing well and keep his seat at AlphaTauri. And now that things have flipped around, we were reminded again that things in Formula 1 can change super fast. But let's talk about the big problem. De Vries is driving, so you can make your own decision about whether de Vries should be replaced by Ricciardo or not. What seemed to be wrong with de Vries is that our hopes got really high because of how he drove at Monza. This was the race where he was able to drive better than expected in a car that he only drove for one practice session FP3 when he replaced Alex Albon because the Thai driver had to have emergency surgery for his appendix. To make things even more amazing, he drove Lewis Hamilton's Aston Martin that same Friday, doing 2 different practice sessions with 2 different cars, and then totally beat his teammate and finished 9th place, getting 2 points for a team that usually can't even get out of the first part of qualifying. Now there were several things going his way, like 9 drivers having to start from the back of the grid because of penalties and him moving up in the starting lineup. But surviving through all the crashes is what matters most. It wasn't just us regular people who had high hopes for de Vries. He got asked to test for the Alpine team, and there were even talks about him replacing Sergio Perez at Red Bull too. I do think that Red Bull is very happy they didn't choose to sign de Vries, because even though he's still new and Franz Tost is protecting him, his driving is far from good. That his constant crashes and dumb mistakes, like he called his accidents in Baku and Australia, are what put a target on his back. And now, according to Helmut Marko, he has only 3 races left to show good results, or else he'll be replaced. If this turns out to be true, then de Vries will have one of the shortest careers in F1 at age 28. 8 races as a full-time F1 driver, and 1 race filling in for Alex Albon. Even Pierre Gasly, who had really terrible results with Red Bull in 2019, managed to survive the first half of the season since he was able to last 13 races as Verstappen's teammate. Now, with this in mind, who would be the right person to replace de Vries? Obviously, the team is thinking about replacing him if he keeps doing what he's doing, crashing the car and bringing disappointing results every single weekend. Daniel Ricciardo has come up as the possible person for the seat, even though he said that he didn't want to race for any team just because, and feels like he's good enough to bring good results to a race-winning team. I think he's thinking too highly of himself. 2 bad years at McLaren and 1 year off can definitely hurt your driving skills, something that Christian Horner talked about when he had the chance to work with Ricciardo as a backup driver, so he may have even been given a reality check by Red Bull and was told that if he wants to drive, AlphaTauri is the best they can offer. As their backup driver, he has to do a practice session for both Red Bull and AlphaTauri, and since he'll test the RB19 car in June, this was probably why he was seen in Faenza, the place where AlphaTauri's factory is. But there's too much of a coincidence here for us to think that nothing is happening behind the scenes. And the person who gets hurt in all this would be Nick de Vries. Now, what would be the most important thing to watch for in the next couple of races? Luckily for de Vries, he will get a big car upgrade package at Imola, the race that could definitely make or break his future F1 career, just like Monza turned out to be last year. Funny enough, de Vries is now trying to save his F1 career in the same country where he got so much attention from every team last year. But that's just how it is, and we're living with it. Also, he was beaten by Yuki Tsunoda 4-1 in qualifying sessions, and Tsunoda hasn't finished a race worse than 11th place. The only 2 points the team has gotten in the team championship were brought by the Japanese driver. It was shown that Tsunoda can handle pressure pretty well, especially since he worked very hard during the winter break to survive the F1 challenge. As for de Vries, it seems like he took his first race at Williams for granted and thought he could live off his old fame and glory. This is a perfect example where you can see that one race doesn't matter if you're not doing well all the time. What seems to be the problem with de Vries, and why isn't he driving the way he should? Obviously, he's 28 years old, and starting an F1 career at this age is definitely hard by itself. Yes, he did win the F2 championship in 2019. In 2019 he wasn't. They're able to handle the pressure and talent of George Russell and Lando Norris. And in 2021 he won the Formula E championship, just because the qualifying format was changed and the races were made much closer by luck. The next year he went on to lose it to his teammate Stoffel Vandoorne, which shows that we may have thought de Vries was better than he actually is. So is Ricciardo the right choice to replace De Vries? Red Bull would go against their usual pattern again if they brought the Honey Badger back to the team, like they did with Perez, because they have one of the strongest driver training programs in the sport. Liam Lawson has gotten his super license and has enough points to race in Formula 1, and Ayumu Iwasa is definitely doing great in Formula 2 right now. Then there's Dennis Hauger, and you can never ignore the talent of Colton Herta from the IndyCar 500, the driver who Red Bull really wanted to sign but couldn't get the FIA to make an exception for the super license points needed. Now the situation for AlphaTauri means that they'll be able to get points if their car upgrades work. Ricciardo would be a good solution. This would mean that the team's value would go up, and if they manage to climb into the middle of the pack, then Ricciardo would be praised for his work. And even if the team is sold, something that has been talked about more and more in the past couple of months, the price would go up because of Ricciardo's solid driving. That's if he manages to get the results people expect from him. Because he did fail once at McLaren, even though it was mostly the team's fault. This automatically means we need to be super careful when judging his ability to drive a car that's not performing well. As for the rest of the super talented drivers in their training program, they are definitely the better choice for Alfa to do what it does best, train talent for the main Red Bull team. Now that France Tost said Tsunoda may be ready to join Verstappen as his teammate from 2025 onwards, it's clear that the team would have to train new talent for when that time comes, and maybe for themselves too. This is especially true since they desperately need someone to keep the team alive and survive in the middle of the pack. But for them to survive in the middle, they'd first have to get there, since being 9th place in the team championship with 2 points means absolutely nothing for AlphaTauri's long-term survival. Nick De Vries will be under huge pressure in the upcoming races, not just because of his dumb mistakes and his inability to drive the car the way it's supposed to be driven without hitting walls and staying on track, but because he keeps getting beaten by It is true that he is still new and has a lot to learn in the sport, as France Tost confirmed, and Tsunoda already has 3 years of experience with the team. But Tsunoda was the driver who started the season with more pressure than De Vries. Ricciardo, on the other hand, may have accepted the hard truth that his best years are over. And if he wants to compete in Formula 1, there are only a few teams he can choose from. If AlphaTauri doesn't choose Liam Lawson and the decision to fire De Vries for his poor driving becomes real, we might see the Honey Badger back in action again. As of now, we need to pay closer attention to the next 3 races, especially Imola, since this is the race where AlphaTauri would give both of its drivers a huge boost in car performance. This is the place where F1 drivers either succeed or fail, and for De Vries' journey, the F1 world would hope that he will become a solid F1 driver who has survived the pressure of Helmut Marko and the entire Red Bull organization. If he doesn't, life goes on and a replacement will be brought in quickly.